From the nonpartisan Maddy Institute and the California channel at the state capitol, this is a Maddy Policy Brief. Welcome back. We're talking about criminal justice with two experts from the nonpartisan PPIC, Magnus Lofstrom and Brandon Martin. I want to ask you about, Magnus, about cops on the beat, staffing levels. They seem to have taken a hit during the recession, not surprisingly. Have they recovered?
No, they haven't. We saw increases, pretty steady increases, roughly along the lines of the population growth in California in the early 2000s. Great recession hit in 2008, and since then we've seen a drop of about 4,000 officers, sworn officers in California. That's a drop of about 5%. It hasn't recovered in the last couple of years. It's leveled and come up slightly.
Is it coming up more than the growth in population? Or?
No, it's not. So in fact, if we look at the number of sworn officers that we have per 100,000 residents, and compare that to 2008, it was around 220, 221 per 100,000 residents. We're now below 200 at 198. So that's a 10% drop. It's not keeping pace with population growth in California.
Okay, Brandon, law enforcement seems to be more of a local issue, more than state government. I assume we're seeing more of an impact now at the local level in terms of these police staffing levels. Isn't ultimately crime a local issue? And so is police enforcement.
Yeah. So both crime and law enforcement are a local issue. And historically, you're correct. Counties and cities have provided the bulk of police protection for their residents. The state does have the California Highway Patrol. That force makes up about 10% of all sworn officers in the state. Their duties are to patrol the state highways and interstates, and then also to protect elected officials and buildings. So most of your on-the-beat cops are at the county and city level.
Yeah, I was looking at your statistics and I added them up. I think my math is right. 87% of the police staffing is at the county and city level. There's some other police officers like work for universities and special police officers, but about 87%, which is a large number, local level.
Yes.
And we were talking off camera before this segment about how much of that police costs are in the city or county budgets. And I've seen the numbers be quite high. If you talk about public safety, if you add fire and police and pensions, I mean, you're talking up 70, 80% sometimes. So it can be very, very expensive for a community. Max, let me ask you this about some people are saying that maybe you really can't arrest your way out of the crime problem. Others argue that, no, actually you can. If you have more police officers, that's a pretty cost-effective way to prevent crime. What does your research show?
Well, we, a number of years ago, and we've updated this research, we looked first at what is the crime preventive effect of incarceration, one of the other major tools that we use to manage public safety. And we looked at it in the context of realignment, where there was a big drop in the number of offenders who are being incarcerated in California. We estimate about 18,000. And we looked at what happened to crime there, and then can we use that information to tell us how cost-effective is incarceration. We found that if you take and you spend an additional dollar on incarceration in California, we get only about 23 cents back in terms of crime prevention. Now, switch that to the topic here, which is policing. What about if we spend that additional dollar on hiring an additional police officer? Well, the research on that shows a cost preventive savings of $1.62, so a much more cost-effective way to deal with crime prevention. I think there's one other important aspect of this when we talk about it. Adding police to on the street and the crime preventive effect, it's not an arrest effect per se. Research shows that when you have police presence in the community, it's the deterrence effect. That's the main thing that actually has an impact on
we all know that as we're driving down the highway, if we see a highway patrol, we slow it down a little bit. So that would be the anecdotal evidence. Brandon, I want to ask you about police-community relations. It's been in the news a lot lately about police profiling, perhaps excessive use of force in some isolated situations. How do Californians feel about community police relations? Are they kind of tracking the national narrative on this?
Yeah, so there has been a lot in the national news about this. PPIC's statewide survey center actually has asked about this in some of our statewide surveys. And so the most recent survey that asked about it was in January of this year, 2016, and what they find is that 61% of Californians surveyed believe that blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment in the criminal justice system. And this is actually up about 6 percentage points from the last time they asked in January.
Does that matter what ethnic group you're in?
So across all ethnic groups, a majority feel that way. They hold those views. The lowest, I believe, was in terms of whites was about 55%, and 93% of blacks believe that.
Wow, that is a tremendous, if you look at African Americans and blacks, 92, 93% those are high numbers.
Yes. Yeah.
For a more in-depth analysis of this and other public policy issues important to Californians, please log on to our website at maddyinstitute.org and click on the Policy Analysis tab.